Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Rempel, the Chief Innovation Officer for Redwood Logistics, and today we'll be discussing Fragmentation Nation, how a leading produce supplier, Taylor Farms, utilized technology to continuously optimize its supply chain despite a splintering logistics market. So let's jump in. So everyone is familiar with the fragmentation associated with logistics, right? And, a lot of organizations know that they want to become digital as well. So what we're going to discuss today is the world of logistics and the world of technology. And it's visualized here kind of as a northern and southern hemisphere on the left. If you think about when a shipper looks at the logistics market, it's hyper fragmented, as we all know. In addition to over 100,000 carriers, there's many shippers, many 3PLs, all different types of suppliers, and they're all trying to find a harmony. But due to that massive fragmentation, especially in a world where supply chains are being super disrupted like they are today, you're looking at closed ecosystems, limited optionality, and it's very difficult to pivot and respond. But in addition to trying to navigate that world of logistics and all of that fragmentation, organizations are bringing in new solutions to that problem, solutions that have to do with technology. And that technology is offering things like ways to manage logistics, like a TMS, integrating order management systems, tying sales into forecasts and operational planning and procurement and warehouse management and control tower and everything in between. So as you can see from the visual, the world of technologies, those choices are almost just as fragmented as the logistics market itself. The data isn't uniform. It's difficult to pick and choose the right apps to run your supply chain, and it's very difficult to innovate at scale. So if you think about that a little bit further, the way organizations are dealing with it is they're wiring these cobwebs together between what we at Redwood like to call the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, between the worlds of logistics and technology. And all of that wiring is often done by internal IT departments. There's a ton of complexity, there's a ton of delay, there's a ton of miscommunication, and there's certainly a ton of risk. And so that path to digital logistics can often feel very out of reach, and there needs to be a better way. And so what we've been working on at Redwood for the better part of our journey, and certainly for the last 10 years, is a new strategy, a new way to solve this problem, and something we call LPaaS, or Logistics Platform as a Service. And it's not a technology, rather, it's a way of looking at how you bridge together logistics and technology. And we want to do this in order to give people tools, right? And the way we're doing this is by creating a new market category. And we're educating people on how you could better orchestrate the value that you can gain by maximizing the value between logistics and technology and how you weave all of this together. So what we'll do on the coming slides is we're going to discuss kind of how we got here, how we look at the market, how we look at shippers, and then we'll dive into a case study with Taylor Farms that we're very excited to review here today. So if you go back to that concept of a northern and southern hemisphere, that's how we look at the world of logistics and technology. And Redwood has roots at the intersection of this world. As an organization that's 20 years old, we've built our own technology, we've bought it, we've delivered it to shippers, we've delivered it to carriers, and we've woven it together for our customers. But what we've learned is it is difficult and it is risky to live in the middle of those two worlds. And having lived there for so long, we've come up with playbooks that we're excited to share with our customers and with even our competitors so that we can create a better playbook on how to integrate these two worlds to create digital supply chains. And the way we've been delivering it is through our 3 business units called Move, Manage, and Innovate. The first 2, most folks are pretty familiar with. Move is where we have our brokerage, both our traditional brokerage and our digital freight brokerage. We offer managed services where our customers can leverage, commercial technology to get the best way to manage their freight through flexible freight management offerings across all mode of transportation and, optimize that network, put things on autopilot and, really get the most out of a managed services partner. And within Innovate, that's where we really look to say, how can we change the game? How can we deliver tools to our customers in a better way? How can we weave it together with their existing systems? And how can we deliver new tools like WMS, TMS, integrate carriers, partners, new technologies? And we do all of that with what's at the center, and that's Redwood Connect. So all of this together are the foundation or the pillars of our LPaaS strategy. And a lot of that really has to do with giving shippers what they want first. Maybe they need help moving the freight. Maybe they need help managing the freight. Maybe they want to reimagine how their supply chain works, and our Innovate group is there to help. But what we've also learned over the years, and I'm sure this resonates with everyone watching this, is that every organization has a unique fingerprint, different patterns, different shippers, different consignees, different modes of transports, different ways of looking at seasonality and freight patterns and equipment types and everything in between that makes our industry both so complex, but also so much fun. And so as we recognize that, and we know that every solution is different, what we have realized is that the pattern to create these digital and physical solutions are the same. And the way we do that is through our LPAS menu. And that LPAS menu with Redwood Connect at the center ties those two worlds together. The blue world of logistics at the top, the red world of technology at the bottom. And our goal is to deliver these types of solutions that we've delivered to Fortune 50 customers to the Fortune 5,000 and beyond by giving them a menu of logistics services, technology solutions, as well as Redwood Connect at the center, which is a digital fabric that can orchestrate everything. And if we break this menu down a little bit and kind of explain what's inside of each of these segments, it'll help our group understand what we can offer to our customers, but also help the market understand what we can deliver. So it starts with our 3PL services. This is the core of Redwood Logistics, and this is what we've been delivering for quite some time, which is how do we deliver best-in-class 3PL and brokerage solutions to our customers to optimize that physical supply chain, the actual movement of goods, and helping get that product from A to B. On top of that is our digital brokerage tools, where we have real-time API-led logistics services to build a composable supply chain. What that really means is, organizations can mix and match which types of tools, whether it's automatic rating or carrier capacity identification or instant procurement. Bringing those tools to market lets shippers take advantage of playbooks that we've already built and implement them in ways that work for them. And that leads to a logistics ecosystem. Our model is to be open. As we would love to move all of our customers' freight, we realize, back to the fingerprint, that every organization is different and we can't do everything for everyone. So that's why we firmly believe in having an open ecosystem where we can pick any service provider, any partner to get the job done for any shipper. As we move to the bottom world, we'll look at platform services. This is our Innovate group, or as we call it, Redwood Platform Services. And this is where we have a professional services groups of logistics experts, not developers, right? Not operators, but logistics experts who speak the language of not only how we run these playbooks, but how to implement them for shippers and even other 3PLs so that they can implement and orchestrate and build their own digital supply chain. Next comes open enterprise connectivity. What Redwood Connect delivers is the ability to connect to any API, any trading partner, anyone, whether it's EDI, API, data streams, data sources, the ability to simply mix and match technologies so that that group can actually take advantage of what comes next, which is an app and data ecosystem, where we deliver curated applications for logistics that are ready for plug and play integration into our customers' enterprises. And at the core, the way that we do this is Redwood Connect, where we've built a serverless integration platform as a service, or an iPaaS, that enables data unity between logistics services and technology so that our customers can get that feeling of simply plugging right in and getting the value of how to weave together the northern hemisphere of logistics, the southern hemisphere of technology, and turn all of that into extreme value for our customers. So if you think about what all of this means, it means that in the past, you could go and say, well, I need a TMS, I need a 3PL, maybe I want to leverage my own internal fleet, I want to orchestrate rules between them, and you'd have to weave all of those connections as well as the business logic together. With LPAS, we just make that a lot easier, and we'll jump into an example with Taylor Farms to show how. So what we're going to do next is we're going to dive into the case study with Taylor Farms and explain how they went from a highly manual driven organization that is very large, but still very manual, and turn that into a digital footprint that supports the evolution of their business, both from a growth and scale perspective, but also from going from an analog supply chain to a very digital and very, optimizable supply chain as they find new business ideas. So first, to simply talk about Taylor Farms. Started in 1995, Taylor is now the world's top producer of fresh cut produce. If you're ever in, the Salinas, California or Yuma, Arizona area, you can see just, fields and fields and fields of lettuce growing. And they provide fresh fruits and vegetables to the largest supermarket chains in the US. Think Walmart, McDonald's, Subway, et cetera. And their challenge, as I mentioned before, was managing that inbound transportation across 5 US facilities. A lot of it was manual. The data sources were all disconnected, and they were leveraging multiple external applications and carriers. What does that really turn into? That 14 people were often just on the phone, talking to carriers, entering stuff in Excel or an old TMS, depending on which location they worked at, and trying to juggle all of this together and doing double data entry and manual work across multiple systems. And it was a nightmare. So as you scale with more people, you run into these challenges of people can only do so much, and as you bring more and more people on, the ability for that person to help becomes diminished, because now you have cross communication going on, and it's just a difficult place to live. And many of us have been there in the past and understand that quite well. But their desired outcome was to optimize operations, improve customer communications, because it's not just about how they work internally, it's about that customer experience and letting them know where their produce is, and doing this in a fast and low cost way, so that as they change their mind and as the business evolves, because this is a world's largest producer of produce, but also their business model changes, they introduce new product lines, they have new ways that they want to manage their operations, we need to support them in their mission to do that. And so we're going to jump in and talk about that here. So if you think about it, and if you recall what we mentioned earlier, right, every organization has that fingerprint, and they have to navigate the world of the North, logistics, and all these different shippers and consignees and carriers and partners, and the world of the South, which is not only their existing enterprise systems like ERPs, but also TMSs, WMSs, and any kind of technology they want to bolt on. So if we take a look at what that means for Taylor, they're a Microsoft Dynamics shop. And the first thing that they wanted to do was to integrate MercuryGate. So what we'll do here is we'll take a look at what the process looks like if Taylor were to do this without Redwood LPAS and without Redwood Logistics Professional Services. So if we think about it, right, orders have to go from an order management system to a TMS. That TMS then has to send, not only tracking visibility updates, but also, invoice data and whatever other information companies want to be synchronized between systems. So right there is a couple of connections that require IT, security, scale, making sure that messages get delivered, data translation, transformation, a whole bunch of things that for every additional system they want to wire up, your IT department would have to go through that mess of understanding what, the business model is, what the security requirements are, and everything in between. And this is why often crossing that digital divide becomes difficult, because before the project gets started and you even get to talk about logistics value, you're dealing with technology hurdles that simply get in the way of value generation. But as that keeps going, right, now you weave in carriers. So the TMS is up and running, and you want to bring in a carrier base. So, that's often, EDI, sometimes that's email, setup, but, it's a much larger carrier base than this. We're just showing it for the purposes of illustration, but you have to think about how do you best automate that. And obviously in the world of carrier EDI, you're talking tender, you're talking tracking updates, tender acceptance, invoicing, acknowledgements, everything that goes with the world of EDI, which is not going away, even though there's lots of visibility partners, and we'll get to that in a second here. Then what Taylor wanted was a better experience for sending out emails to their customers. And so they wanted data to come out of MercuryGate, but then get transformed into a highly custom email that created a look and feel and experience that wasn't native out of the box from a TMS, so that their customers could get notification when something has picked up, as well as tracking updates along the way that's branded and looks good, right? A nice, rich email that gives information, so that the experience doesn't start when the produce arrives, but the experience starts when it ships from the dock, and they have visibility to it the entire way. Continuing on, they wanted to integrate Locus Tracks, which provides, location-based information on their products, right? Because a lot of carriers out in the marketplace are not capable of EDI, and, you don't have any kind of tracking capabilities. So you can use these types of tools to get location data. And then they wanted yard management. So now you have a yard commander program, which is able to say, where are my assets, or where are my carrier's assets within a yard, so that I can plan accordingly, fill them, and get them ready for pick or drop. And as we continue, they wanted macro point because they realized that, putting locus tracks integrations with carriers, and devices could be difficult. So they wanted, cell phone based tracking. So macro point would get a registration and then send data back to Mercury Gate. And as we go through this, remember every single one of these lines, it's an IT project with integration with needs for security, scale, visibility, data translation, all of the IT-ilities that often make these projects fail. If you look at what they wanted next, they wanted temperature tracking. And this way, you could immediately divert a load, for that load to get handled properly if the temperature goes out of range, because we're dealing with fresh food here. And, before it would arrive and, perhaps there was, a reefer unit that went bad and, then they have to inspect the product. Well, now they have direct information. They don't have to depend on carriers to know the temperature of pallets as they ship across the country, and they can, be ready ahead of time. And that data, both the temperature as well as the geo data comes in. And so they realized, hey, we're getting lat long data, but we don't know what that means. So then it's woven through a Google Maps, geocoding API that then turns lat long into city state information, which communicates with carriers, goes back into Mercury Gate. That data goes back into Dynamics. And then they asked for a dock scheduling application. So Redwood helped deliver Smart Dock, an application that we built them to manage, drag and drop capabilities of scheduling appointments and how long it would take to, load or unload a vehicle simply based on the product and the SKU mix on there, so it would automatically figure out how much time it took and create rules and visibility to dock utilization. And so that was a large success. But there was a challenge, which was they were still paying a lot for detention, and they wanted to integrate something like a Twilio where they could summon the driver when they arrive at the location and say, please wait in our staging area, and then we'll summon you to the location when it's time for you to load or unload. And what that really did is it reduced a huge amount of detention and, was a huge improvement for Taylor. So if you look at all of this, it's really exciting, but it's a lot of work. And if you think about, this supply chain and this fingerprint, doing something like this for an internal IT department is a multi-year project. And, even forget the cost and the skill level of this, it's just an endeavor that is, as we mentioned before, crossing that chasm between logistics and technology. It's highly risky and highly complex. So instead, what we did is we leveraged Redwood LPAS. So Taylor knew that these were the items they wanted, at the bottom, the technology tools. And these are the carriers that they wanted to weave in and integrate at the top. And the way that we are able to do that is with Redwood Connect, which is this platform on the right-hand side. So rather than Taylor having to worry about all of those wires that we showed you earlier, they simply connected once to Redwood Connect. And that single connection, when they connected Microsoft Dynamics for the first time, allowed us to use Redwood Connect to weave in Twilio, Mercury Gate, Smart Dock, custom email, Sensitech, Google Maps, MacroPoint, Locus Tracks, Yard Commander. All of that came into, their LPAS fingerprint, their solution, because Redwood Connect, our serverless integration platform, allowed our logistics experts to drag and drop these boxes that you're seeing here on the right-hand side and do things like make an API call. That API call transforms data, sends it to the TMS, and all of those lines that you saw before are simply visual representations of these drag and drop business logic that automatically create the infrastructure, deal with the security, and connect our customers to the digital world that they're looking for. So now we are doing more than managing their physical supply chain. We are using this tool to deliver and build their digital supply chain. And that's what Redwood LPAS is really all about. It's taking that menu of choices and turning it into a fingerprint or a solution that matches for every single customer, because with Redwood Connect, they get their own environment. They get their own access to their own data. It's all secured, it all scales, and they get to think about innovation and logistics value creation and not wiring in the walls. And so to bring it all together, what we're really looking at here is, impact. visibility and control savings, optimization savings through, multi-stop consolidation, labor efficiencies, allowing FTEs to manage more individually, lowering the cost per pound dramatically, at the, different locations, and being able to measure it, the difference between, a California location or a logistics center, or locations where they use the product. And then, as it looks to, what we're doing here, that bottom stat really calls it out, which is, there's an increase in freight under management per FTE of over 100%, meaning not only do they get all of these tools, but, people are twice as productive as they were in the past. And so we like to think that amazing things happen. And with this solution, Taylor Farms is able to say to us, without having to reintegrate anything, I want my supply chain to behave in a different way, or I want new carriers woven into my fabric, or I want to automate what happens between systems, between my order system and my TMS, between a tracking update and between a dock appointment. And they can do that without having to engage their IT at all. They've only engaged their IT the first time that they did this, and it was really exciting. So with that, we appreciate your time. We'll move to, questions and answers in our live session, but thank you very much.